Welcome back to another episode of Tapping into Life. I am your host, Brenda, and I'm very excited to share with you this conversation I have had with my returning guest, Andria Englezos. She was on episode 13, where we talked about her postpartum journey and how to find your voice in difficult times. This is a part 2 of that conversation. She's going to be sharing with us how she navigated her mental health journey and the ups and downs with the system, with the medication, with dealing with addiction. But the beautiful thing is how she came through it all. And you're going to hear about all of the beautiful takeaways in her story. It is truly inspirational. I feel very grateful that she is able to share her story. She's very brave, and this is what it's about. It's about putting these stories out there, sharing so that people can learn and know that there is hope and there are ways to get through this. Mental health is a very important topic for me. I'm very passionate about it, and I think it's something that we need to keep the conversation going. And so, I'm very grateful for Andria willing to do this and share her story with you. The topic is of a sensitive nature. At the beginning of our conversation, she does share about her postpartum, gives a little bit of a recap. So just keep in mind that if you find this conversation a little bit triggering, to maybe pause, or another beautiful way to support your nervous system is to do some tapping. Listen to what your body needs. I think it is important that we have these conversations, and I think it's also important to know that we're not alone. This is becoming more of a common issue, especially with postpartum and how women are dealing with getting the support and dealing with their mental health. We need to be able to have these conversations, and we need to stick together and support each other. So I hope that you find some comfort in knowing that there is another side to this. And this woman is exceptional. She is so brave, she is very courageous, and she has so much strength. So I am so looking forward for you to hear this conversation. And let's head on over to the episode.
When I had my son, about 3 months after I had him, is when the postpartum actually hit. I started having random intrusive thoughts, um, thoughts about harming him, different ways of how I was going to harm him. Um, and then eventually they became so bad that I wanted to obviously harm myself, because I couldn't take them anymore. Um, I tried, you know, uh, reaching out to my family members, which they were very, very supportive, with everything that I was dealing with. We went to multiple hospitals. I kept getting the boot. Nobody would actually take the time to assess me. Um, they basically were just telling me to move on, that the anxiety wasn't going to kill me, and that I should just kind of deal with it. But the problem is with that is that the anxiety is debilitating. I remember to the point where like I would stiffen, like I couldn't even move. Your heart is racing, you're getting the sweats, the thoughts are just constantly popping into your mind, which is making it even worse. Um, and I had no way of controlling it because I didn't really, I never dealt with anxiety before. Um, and it like the one hospital I went to, which was Markham Stouffville, I believe. Uh, I was assessed by the mental health nurse, which she was actually very understanding and sympathetic with what I was going through. And then she had to transfer me obviously to one of the emerge doctors. And when he walked in, I was with my brother. My brother was basically taking me from appointment, or not from hospital to hospital. Um, the emergency doctor came in. He was a young gentleman, but he looked me. I didn't even get to say anything to him. And I'm sure she gave him the rundown that I was having these intrusive thoughts about harming my son. And like I was fearful that I was going to act on these thoughts, because it gets to the point where your brain is constantly playing it over. And then you start thinking, is this what I'm actually feeling? Is this what I want to actually do? And then you get scared that you're going to actually act on them, right? So he just walked in and he looked at me and said, "You're suffering from depression. Sorry, you're suffering from anxiety. It's not going to kill you. Move on." And he gave me a prescription for an antipsychotic. Clearly, if you're giving me a prescription for an antipsychotic, you're basically acknowledging that there's something off going on with me. Um, and I just looked at my brother and I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's it. Just go home, go back to your kid, take this pill, and you know you'll get over it." Um, I just looked at my brother. Was like, "You can't take me home. I can't go home. I fear for his safety. I fear for my own safety. I can't even be in the vicinity of my. I couldn't even look at my house because the anxiety was just so overwhelming." Um, so I had asked him if he could take me anywhere but home. So we decided that we were going to go down to my sister's, who lives in downtown Toronto, and I was going to stay with her for a little bit in hopes that, I can, I guess, snap out of whatever was going on. Um, the medication that he gave me, it was called quintiapine. I believe it's called Seroquel, which is the medical term for it, which is a very, very strong sedative drug. So basically, I would take it and it would put me to sleep. And I just wanted to sleep because, when you fall asleep, you don't think and you're not struggling with the anxiety or the depression or the thoughts. So I was taking those like they were candy because I did not want to be conscious. I wanted to basically sleep. And then I was there for a few days, and then one day I woke up, and the only thought that kept running through my mind was, "Go take your pills, go take all your pills, go take all your pills, go take all your pills." And that's how the thoughts would come in. They were just constant. Go take your pills, go take your pills. You're not going to feel this anymore. It's going to go away. You're not going to feel it. You're going to die. Go take all your pills. And I remember like walking up to my pill bottle and I was shaking because I was like, is this what I want to do? Is this how like I'm going to handle this? And I just remember something, saying just take one pill and go back to sleep. And when you wake up, we'll deal with it. So that's what I did. I took one of the pills and I went back to sleep. And when I woke up again, I was strung out with anxiety. And I approached my sister and I said to her, "If you don't get me to a hospital downtown Toronto, I'm not going to survive. uh, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't go on like this anymore. I can't have these thoughts anymore. Like I'm just gonna end my life, basically." So I guess she got scared and she had called uh, my boyfriend at the time and was like, "I have to take her to a hospital down here because she's not doing well," and like she's talking about like basically ending her life. And he he's a good guy. And he like was researching as to where would be the best place for me to go. So he had suggested to her to take me to Mount Sinai because apparently they had a good mental health ward. So we went to Mount Sinai, and I remember I was sitting in the waiting room with my sister, surrounded by mothers and their babies, and the anxiety was just killing me because I was listening to babies crying. Like I couldn't even watch babies on TV. I couldn't even see pictures of my son. Like it was horrendous, and like I was bawling in the waiting room. And one of the nurses, I guess she saw that I was basically losing my shit. She had called me up to the desk and she asked me what was going on. And I said, I think I'm suffering with postpartum depression. Um, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live anymore. Like, please, like, I don't know what to do. And right away, she grabbed me. She took me into the emerge. She sat me and my sister in this glass waiting room. And I sat there and I waited for, I guess, the emerge doctor to come in. And I remember it was this little old man, emergency doctor. And he walked in, and I was in tears because the anxiety, again, it's debilitating. Like, you think you're going to die from it, right? Um, and he grabbed my hands and he said to me, "Listen, honey, you're suffering from postpartum depression. Um, all the thoughts, all the feeling, the anxiety, everything that you're feeling is very normal to this condition. You've come to the right place. We're going to help you." And I remember looking at this little old man straight in the eyes, and I said to him, "Please let me die. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. And if this is something that is permanent, I can't do it. I can't do it." And I remember seeing his eyes welt up, like, and you're seeing this young mother, new mother. Um, it's heartbreaking, right? Like, it's heartbreaking seeing somebody who just had a baby and struggling with all these thoughts and hormones and being tossed around from hospital to hospital because nobody wants to help. He got very emotional and he just said, I need to step out for a second, to go check on other people. Just wait right here. We're going to help you." So I remember asking my sister, "Please take me out. I need to have a cigarette. I need to have a smoke." It was the only thing that was calming my anxiety. It was the only thing that would help me kind of stop the thoughts just for like a moment. Because they didn't give me anything while I was in there. Obviously, they can't just give you without properly assessing you. Um, so she said she was going to go talk to him to see if we could just step out, to have a smoke. I said, "I don't care if, he has to come with me. I don't care. I just need to go have a smoke to stop the anxiety." So she left me in the glass room again. I'm seeing everything that's going on.
Mm.
And she went up to him, and I saw her kind of just put her hands in her head in her hands, and she started crying. And I was like, "What the hell is she crying about? Like, I just want to go for a smoke, right?" She came back in, and she said, "Do you see the two security guards that are standing outside the glass window?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, you're not leaving the hospital. You cannot go outside. They will not let you leave. Those two security guards are here for you. Um, you're basically going to be here for a bit. No smoking." So I was like, they think I'm crazy, don't they? They think I'm crazy because if they're going to keep me here, that means obviously I'm that shit crazy. Like that, why else would they have security outside of the room, right? Um, so like, I guess if I remember correctly, I think they came in and they gave me a little bit of an anxiety medication. I don't remember what they actually gave me while I was in the hospital. Um, but they basically formed me. And Form 1 is you're under suicide watch for basically 72 hours. So I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital for 72 hours. Um,
Can
after
I
this,
ask you? Sorry, Andrea, I was just going to ask
yeah, yeah,
you. Up until that point, you had already gone to the hospital once before, and you were.
3 times,
So this
three
was the
different hospitals.
third. This was the third time.
This is the fourth.
Okay, so this is the fourth time. I think this is an important point to point out, and I know you talked about this in the previous episode, but just to kind of bring people up to speed, how can you share a little bit about the journey of like going to these, were they four different hospitals or,
Yes.
And like, how
Yes.
did it feel in terms of like feeling heard?
No,
As
they didn't.
so there was no
Nothing.
validation, no compassion.
Nothing. 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 The first hospital when I went in there, there was maybe like four other people in the waiting room. It was just me and my brother. Um, they sat us there after I was, I guess, triaged, and every person and their mother that was coming in, even with just a runny nose, that was coming in after me was going in before me. They never came to check up on me. At one point, the whole emerge was empty. It was just me and my brother, and at this point, it was like 8 hours of sitting there waiting for somebody to come and help me, and I was strung out with anxiety. Um, I went up to the desk and I said, "What is taking so long? Why haven't I seen anybody? You've taken everybody who's come after me in before me. Like, what is the holdup? I don't understand." And she just looked and she goes, "You probably won't see anybody for another 8 hours." I said, "So you were going to let us sit there for 16 hours without coming to check in on me, without having anybody, come and assess me? You were taking everybody else in, but you were just letting me basically sit there um, with nothing." And she's like, "There's really not much we can do. The psychiatrist on call is not going to be in for another 8 hours." So I said, "Take me off your books. I'm going home.
Mhm. And I
I'm
think
going to go
that,
home. I'm not."
yeah, I think
Sorry.
this
Yeah.
is a really important point is that oftentimes, I mean, I hear and I know personally for going to the hospital, people, it's like the last place, obviously, most people want to be. But, there's obviously times where you need to go. And it's like you're almost guaranteed you're going to be there at least 7 hours. So kind of, suck it up, buttercup. But, you
But
know,
7 hours, like being in and out of a room, maybe that like doing some
yeah,
kind of assessment, not just go sit in the waiting room and just wait for your number to be called.
exactly. And I think that what comes to mind for me, and I don't know how this will land for the listeners, but it feels almost like it's not being taken seriously. Like I'm coming here with some serious concerns. I'm feeling these feelings that are very hard to manage, and I'm getting pushed to the side. Is that like, am I picking that up correctly? Or, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
so this,
To be honest with you, if I didn't walk up to that desk, I would have sat there for another 8 hours. I mean, I probably would have just left anyways.
yeah.
Um, but if I didn't go up there and her basically tell me you're shit out of luck, no one's going to see you, I I would have sat there.
And I think this is where it gets frustrating. The system is so taxed as it is. And, we're talking about Canada. And I think, too, this is not just a Canadian issue, but I think it really is discouraging people from going and getting help. And so if I'm going and being vulnerable and sharing, these are some of the things I'm struggling with, and it's kind of like, well, you're not going to die from this.
Yeah.
That's not, when you said that, I'm thinking, wow, there's like absolutely no compassion. You're actually dismissing me. You're not actually hearing me. And so I think that this is a huge problem that people need to start paying attention to, is if we're going to, start to address our mental health, we need to first start listening to the patient and hearing what they're saying. I
Hmm.
don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you're just a number. I think our healthcare system right now is flooded with people suffering from mental health, and they don't take it seriously. You're just a number. You go in there, they'll pump you full of medication, and then they send you on your way. And the sad thing is, they don't tell you anything about these drugs. They just put them on. They just put them in you, and hope that you're going to take them. Because there's a lot of situations where people don't actually think they're crazy when they do need help. They do need some of these medications, but they are free to go because legally they can't hold you here for mental health episodes. So even though back to me at the hospital, once the 72 hours come, and I didn't do anything in those 72 hours. I was basically laying in bed, in the hospital bed, right? Um, I wasn't allowed to leave the floor. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. I wasn't allowed to have any visitors. I wasn't, there was really nothing that I could, all I had was my phone. That's it. Um, they didn't give me, I think they gave me some stuff for the anxiety, but they couldn't really give me any other meds for the first 3 days because, I mean, they didn't know how crazy I was. Um, so after the 72 hours commenced, I think that was on a Sunday. There's like I guess a psychiatrist that just works either on the weekends, and then there's some that work during the week. So the man that was there on the weekend um, came in and basically said, "Okay, well, your 72-hour hold is over. Um, you're free to go. You're free to go." Nothing has changed in the last 72 hours. If anything, I've been trapped in a room, with these thoughts, trying to fight them off by myself. And you're going to send me home? I said, where am I going? And he's like, you're free to go home. And I said, I'm not going anywhere. Um, if you're gonna, I said to him, if you're gonna tell me that there's no help, there's nothing that you can do that will make me better, I'm telling you right now, the moment I walk out of the hospital, I'm jumping in front of the first bus I see. That's it. If you can absolutely tell me that there's no help, I can't get better, I'm stuck this way, I'm going to kill myself. That's it. But if you're telling me that there is a chance that I can get better and this is something that can go away, I'm not leaving until you fix me. I have a baby at home and I can't be around him because I'm scared that I'm going to hurt him and I'm going to hurt myself. So, I mean, realistically, the choice is up to you what you want to do. Do you want to keep me here or you're going to find me on the news? So he he looked at me and he said, I think you made a good choice. I think you made the right decision. Because again, they legally can't hold you there. They can't hold you against your will. You have to voluntarily want to stay there. And because he saw that I was not leaving, because I was afraid for my life, um, and obviously the life of my son, he was like, I think you made the right choice. Because he had clearly saw that I was distraught. I wasn't joking. I wasn't playing around. I was flat out.
Yeah, I think that
So,
that's, yeah, no, I think that that's, I think a really important part that you're sharing here is that you were really being clear of what could happen if you didn't get support, if you didn't get,
it wasn't what could happen. It was gonna happen. I was gonna literally I would walk up and first bus I saw, I would jump right in front of it. The thoughts were debilitating. I couldn't do it. That's not a way for somebody to be living.
no, absolutely. And I think too, there's this, I think sometimes we may have this like image in our heads about like somebody that might be, having these intrusive thoughts, might look a certain way. We kind of put these labels on people. But mental health doesn't discriminate on anybody, right? It's like, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, your nationality, your culture. None of that matters. And
No.
I think that that's where, as women in general, we have to be advocating for our bodies, for our voice. Like, it's a constant advocation of like, hello, do not hear me, do not see, until we say those words, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna hurt myself. I'm gonna take my life. Then all of a sudden, things, it's like something switched, right? Oh, okay, because the liability is so great in this messed up world that it's about a liability. It's, are we
Yep.
concerned about human beings, or are we concerned
No.
about covering our asses because somebody might actually leave the premises that I am, responsible for, and now something's happened. Oh shit, I might get sued.
Hmm.
So this is the backwards thinking, and it's exhausting, and I can see why people don't keep going, because it's like fighting against a brick wall. Like, you're
Hmm.
here trying to get through this wall. It's not like the door's opening up. It's like, wait a second. And I come from working in mental health, and I'm like, this is so disturbing and frustrating. But
Hmm.
I want to just acknowledge to you, Andrea, that you spoke your truth. I mean, most of us find that hard. We've got masks on. I have a certain image to uphold. I am a successful massage therapist. I'm a successful woman. I have a career. I'm doing whatever. I can't look like I don't have my act together. Like, what the
Hmm.
heck? And
Yeah.
especially around mental health, right? When we have a health issue, like a physical health issue, we can say, oh my gosh, I've gotten this. It's not easy to
Yeah.
talk about, but I've got this. But we don't want to talk about mental health. We have Bell Let's Talk.
Yeah.
Sorry, it gets me a little bit aggravated, because we're going to talk. It's a commercialized
One day a year.
corporation. Yeah, one day. We're going to do all this sponsorship one day. What
Yeah.
about the other 364 days? What the
There's
heck
no
is it?
mental health those days.
Right?
Everybody's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You're
Everybody's
having
fine.
a one day, you're allowed that one moment in time. Like, this is the thing. We're so messed up around, like, okay, well, at least we're doing something, oh, yay, rah, rah. No, it's not good enough. And the fact that you spoke up is amazing, because that's how we get help. So, what happened next? Because I'm guessing that this didn't all unfold as beautifully as we would hope. So, what happened next for you on your journey?
uh, so they didn't give me a time frame. When he said that, I made a good choice, they told me that the following morning, um, that I would be meeting with a psychiatrist to see what obviously can be done. So again, I spent another night there, and I remember in the morning. So the rooms, you weren't in individual rooms. I was in a room with five other women. Um, so you were just in a cubicle, basically. There was a curtain there. And I remember her knocking on the wall because I was sleeping. And she knocked on the wall and she said my name and she introduced herself. And I remember the thought that came into my head was, she's going to save me. Like, I instantly saw an angel. I was like, this is the woman. This is the right woman. This is the woman that's going to save my life. And she introduced herself. She is she, she was a wonderful, wonderful doctor. She specialized with postpartum depression. So she knew everything that I was feeling, every thought, like to the point where, like, when we would meet, and I would tell her like the most grotesque thoughts that would pop into my mind, and she'd just sit there with, like, yeah, 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 that's normal, yeah, 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 that's okay, don't worry, they'll go away. It's not permanent, because my thing was, am I permanently like this? Because this is the brain that we're talking about. I'm not physically sick. This is my brain. My brain is making me like this. You're going to tell me that this is curable? How is this curable? And I remember I would lay in the bed at night, and as morbid as this would sound, I would pray for cancer. I was praying, please give me cancer. Physical, I can deal with. I can fight. I can't handle the brain. Like, when you're messing up with the brain, I can't handle it. I would rather you give me a cancer, something that I have to fight, like, physically, than mentally. But she was phenomenal. very supportive, very understanding. She was in control of the medications that, obviously they would have to put me on to balance, I guess, the chemicals that are out of whack in my brain. Um, and obviously, like I was there probably for a good, I honestly can't remember the whole duration. I would have to say anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks I was there. Um, but like after, I guess, the first few days with her, I was allowed to leave, to go downstairs, grab a coffee, have a smoke or whatever. It's the first 72 hours that you're stuck on that floor. You can't do anything. Um, so yeah, they started me on a medication uh, cocktail. I was taking like 5 or 6 different drugs. The main goal was to try to get me to sleep because that's what I believe triggered the postpartum is the fact that for the first 3 months, I didn't sleep at all because, again, from our last conversation, I was terrified that my son was going to have SIDS. So I felt like I had to literally watch him 24/7. Um, so I didn't really get any rest. So they were trying to put me on multiple different drugs, and I'm talking drugs that would probably tranquilize a horse. And I would lay there and stare at the ceiling like these aren't doing anything. Nothing is happening. I'm not sleeping. But again, because the intrusive thoughts, they won't let you sleep, right? But she was very adamant that like it takes a couple weeks before the medication fully absorb into your system, and that's when you start to actually realize that they're starting to work. So I was on clonazepam, which is an anti-anxiety benzodiazepine, dangerous drug. I was put on sertraline, which is Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. I was put on Abilify, which is an antipsychotic. I was put on mirtazapine, which was an old school antidepressant that they used, but they now use it more for sedating properties. I was taking 3 doses of the clonazepam every single day. And then at night they were giving me different sleeping pills, something that, would eventually work in my body. So I tried every possible sleeping pill that you could imagine in combination with the mirtazapine to try and get me to sleep. Here's where my issue is. They don't tell you what the side effects of these drugs are. And you're not all there. You don't know. You're just trusting the process. Um, and without even realizing it, while I was there, uh, my mind started to lead me into taking my focus off the intrusive thoughts. Um, and for some reason, because I always had my phone in there, I never took my phone. I don't know how or what, but I started to gamble on my phone. Yeah, it sounds odd, very odd. It's like it's something that you've like never heard of, but for some reason it was like a coping mechanism. It would get my mind off the thoughts because I was focusing on the gambling. It wasn't like I was focusing on playing anything else or doing anything else on my phone. For some reason, I was isolated with gambling, and I didn't realize I didn't realize I was doing this, right? Again, because you're not all up there. It's just something that helps take the focus off the intrusive thoughts, and it shifts your focus onto something else. I don't know if it's supposed to increase your dopamine levels. I don't know. I don't know. But that's what I like 24/7. I was on my phone gambling. Anytime that I was by myself or in the room, if I wasn't with her or if I wasn't being visited by somebody, I was on the phone and I was playing slots. I was playing cards. I was doing anything to get my mind off of these intrusive thoughts. Again, not even realizing that I was doing this. Um, so in the span that I was in the hospital, I was in there again 4 to 6 weeks. I managed to deplete all my savings. Um, I maxed out my lines of credit. I maxed out my credit cards. Um, I literally bankrupted myself in the hospital. Again, not even acknowledging that I was doing this. It was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna keep playing, right?
Was
Um,
this during your time, the 6 week period that you were in the hospital?
yeah, yeah.
Wow. And when you were in the hospital for that 6 week period and you were taking, like you said, all of these different types of medications, was there any other forms of therapy or support that were being offered to you?
Yes, they in the mornings they would have like mindfulness classes, or like, you can go do some art. But there wasn't really that much. Like they would just try and show you mindfulness techniques so that when the panic attacks would happen, you would try and shift your focus. Well, I was already doing that. I was
Yeah.
already doing it with my phone. Um, so I didn't really care to go to these classes because they weren't really doing anything for me. And to be honest with you, when you are in that state of mind, you're thinking, what the hell is this going to do for me? How,
Mhm.
you can't shift your focus off these intrusive thoughts. They keep coming in. You can maybe think of something else, but you're redirected right back into those intrusive thoughts. Um, so like to me, every day, like if I went into these, it got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to go sleep. I'm going to go sleep in the bed. I'm not going to bother. They're not doing anything. I can't ground myself. I can't stop thinking. Like so, it, yeah.
So you were saying that the phone became a distraction and you ended up going into the gambling situation. When Where was the stopping point for that? I mean, was it when you ran out of money, or did something
No,
else have to happen?
no, because you find ways to get money. That's the problem
Mm.
with gambling. Um, when I was discharged from the hospital, I still didn't tell my doctor that I was doing that because, again, I wasn't recognizing that it was something that was ruining me in a different way. By the time I got out of the hospital, I was still kind of scared to go and be around my son. And I remember when I got home, I sat my family down and I said, do not leave me alone with the baby unless I tell you I am okay to be alone with him. You don't leave me alone. At night, somebody's going to have to sleep with him. I'm going to go lock myself in the room until I am 100% confident that I am not going to react on these thoughts. Please just, don't leave me alone with him. And they were very understanding. My mom would come upstairs because my parents were living with me in my basement. Um, and I would lock myself in the room because I, I knew I wasn't going to act on it, but I was still afraid and I wasn't 100% confident in myself or in the meds just yet. So that was probably another couple weeks. And then after my mom came up one night to go to sleep with him, and I said to her, "No, you can go back downstairs. I'm good." And she's like, are you sure?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. Trust me, I'm good. If I was gonna do something, like I would have done it by now. I'm I'm good. And if I feel any way, you know that I will call you right away. Like I'm not gonna I at least have the wherewithal to understand that I'm in a crisis and I need to get help. So if I'm in that crisis and I feel like I can't be alone with him, I will call you. You can come upstairs and you can relieve me. But for the most part, right now, I think I'm good, and I was good from that point on.
Can I
But
ask you, Andrea, like that's a really big part of like, okay, now I'm like recognizing I'm in a position where I am able to manage being with my son. What was what were the signs that you were picking up on for yourself that was like, okay, I'm okay now? What signs did you notice for yourself?
the anxiety of being around him started to dissipate. I wasn't having the intrusive thoughts weren't coming in as frequent. They'd pop up here and there, but slowly, slowly they started to silence in my head, and I wasn't having the panic attacks, where I felt like I was debilitated, and panic attacks are usually a result of fear, right? And that's why I was getting them, because the thoughts would come in, and I was fearful that I was going to act on them. So once those started to dissipate, I started to feel a little bit more confident to be alone with him. Um, which again, I'm not condemning the medication. The medication did what it was supposed to do for me. It's everything that is associated with the medications afterwards, the side effects that they don't disclose, that they don't tell you about. And each medication that I was on triggered some kind of uh, side effect. Um, so, like me, my normal weight, I'm 113 pounds. That's my normal weight. When I was pregnant, I put on 50 pounds, which okay, whatever. It was my first time. Um, I gained 50 pounds, but as soon as I had my son, the weight started to drop off. Um, and again, once you go into the postpartum, you don't want to eat, so the weight just kept falling off. So I was back to my normal weight. One of the medications that they put me on triggers weight gain. So in a matter of 3 months of being on this specific drug, I gained 85 pounds. So imagine, at the time that I started taking the meds, I was about 105, 110 pounds. I got up to 185 pounds. Sorry, hold on, I can't hear. I
That's
don't know
yeah,
if I. There we
that's
go.
that's crazy. That's wild that and
Like I would. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say that I know when I have been on medication back when I had various health issues, I would ask, what are some of the side effects? And I remember the doctor getting actually quite annoyed. Just trust me, I know what I'm doing. And I was like, but wait a second, shouldn't I know what I'm putting in my body? And then it would almost get even more agitated. This and I have to say that they were mostly men. It was like, wait a second, I would like to know, how is this working? And I found too, because I was having a lot of issues with my reproduction, like I had endometriosis, and they would say, okay, well, you need to go on the birth control pill, or they couldn't figure it out at first, like I couldn't get properly diagnosed. So this is a physical thing, but it sort of falls in the same realm of like, okay, we don't really know what's wrong with you, but we're going to do this. So they wanted to put a patch on me to put me into menopause. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then there's this aggravation of like, you're not doing what I say. So, you know, what do you want from me? And I get this kind of attitude like, well, whatever, do what you want kind of thing. So I'm wondering, how did that work for you? Like when you were going through this healing and trying to get your support and having that conversation of like, okay, well, what is, I know when you're in that state you're not having those conversations, but later on did that come forward of like, holy smokes, like these are having some serious side effects to my body?
Oh, well, so back to the gambling issue, because I bankrupted myself in the hospital. I came out of the hospital. I had to go back to work right away because I was like, I can't survive, and I'm not going to tell my family that I did this to myself because I just got out of the psychiatric ward, and then on top of it, I'm going to tell them that I literally just lost everything. Um, so I was like, okay, I have to go back to work. I got to be around people, and I got to make some money, basically. And that was January of 2020. Um, so in a couple months after I started to work, um, we went into COVID, mandatory lockdown. So I couldn't work. And the government was only giving us $2,000 because $2,000 will pay everything. My mortgage was at the time was like 2,400. Um, so that furthered the depression, and it furthered the gambling addiction because I had to recoup. I had to make some money somehow, because how am I going to pay my bills? I'm not going to ask anybody for money because then they're going to know about what I did, right? Um, it was so bad that I had two dogs, Bella and Storm. In January of 2020, she got sick, and I took her to the vet. She had a lump in her chest that I had it. They had it biopsied. They said it was nothing, um, but this thing just kept growing and growing and growing. And I may have taken her to like six different vets for different opinions, to the point where like one day I woke up and this thing had burst. It split her chest open, and it went from being a dime to like this big in a matter of like a month. So when it split open, I mean, it didn't even phase her that like her chest was split open. She wasn't in any discomfort. She wasn't in any pain, but I want to go get her help. So I took her to the vet, um, another vet, and I was like, just take this lump out. I've gone to like five different vets. Like, why are you guys not taking it out? Just take it out. So she said, okay, we'll do the surgery. We'll bandage her up right now. We won't be able to do the surgery for her for another couple weeks. So just keep the wound, clean. It doesn't look like she's being bothered by it. So, bring her back in 2 weeks. We'll do x-rays and we'll see how much we have to remove. And I said something inside me again was like, no, do the x-rays today. And she's like, oh, we don't need to. Well, we'll just do them on the day of the appointment. I was like, no, do the x-rays today because I need to know what's going on, how much this is going to cost. Because again, I have no money. Um, so they did the x-rays on her and she came back into the room and she basically said, I'm so sorry. Um, there's no point in even doing the surgery. It's not going to do anything for her. It's cancerous and it's spread throughout her entire body. She said you can take her home uh, for a couple weeks if just to say your goodbyes, um, and then you can bring her back and we can put her down. Um, and I said I can't take her home. Like she's got a gaping hole in her chest. I'm gonna take her home and count down the days where I'm gonna have to put her to sleep. No, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this now. So I had to put her down on the spot, um, which was devastating. And again, yeah, I'm already dealing with a lot of other issues. So on top of it, I have to put my dog down. I'm bankrupt. I'm depressed. I have a baby. I have so much going on in my head at this point, and obviously, I'm not working. I'm not making any money. So like, I was just getting hit left, right, and center. Um, I I went home. A few months went by, and we finally got the call to go back to work. My work was deemed essential service. So I went back to work. And during this time, it was like maybe 3 months after I put Bella down. Storm, that was my King Corso. She was my mastiff. She was my baby. I love that dog. That dog was my everything. Um, every day that would go by, I just she was deteriorating. At the moment I put Bella down, she stopped eating. She stopped wanting to go for walks. She started losing all her hair. Um, she lost her zest for life because that was her best friend. They spent every waking moment together. And then I remember one day I was sitting outside with my dad, and she walked right up to me. She put her head on my lap, and it was the look that she gave me where it was like, I'm tired. I think it's time. So I had to ultimately take her in to have her put down. Now I I had no money. I couldn't afford it. And I had a client of mine who became a good friend of mine, um, who I trusted because they had gone through a similar situation in terms of the gambling, so they understood what I was going through, and they knew that I didn't have the money, so they lent me the money to put my dog down. And after I did that, I had to figure out why all this was happening. I wasn't understanding why I developed this addiction. I couldn't understand why I couldn't stop this addiction. I couldn't understand anything that was going on. So I started to look at things that didn't really fit in um, with the situation. And the only thing that I could come up with at that time was maybe you should look at the meds that you're on. Just look at the different, like, what they can do and what kind of side effects they can do. And lo and behold, I Googled the Abilify, which was the antipsychotic, and one of them, it's a rare side effect, but a more severe side effect is it causes compulsive pathological gambling addiction, on top of compulsive spending behaviors and compulsive behaviors in general. They were at the height of a class action lawsuit because of how many people um, lost their shirts to this drug, being on this drug. And then I was like, now it makes sense. Now I understand why all this has started happening. I remember contacting my psychiatrist and telling her, uh, like from the time I went into the hospital to now, I can't stop gambling. I lost everything while I was in the hospital, and I just keep digging myself deeper and deeper, um, going down this rabbit hole further and further every single day because of this drug. And she said to me, I don't think it's the drug. And I said to her, well, I mean, I wasn't a degenerate gambler coming into the hospital, but I left one and now I have nothing. I'm pretty sure if you put two and two together, and this is a rare, but it's a severe side effect of this drug, I think it's probably the medication. I don't think it's the medication. So she kept me on it. I was on this drug, but now I was somewhat aware of it, of the um, uh, addiction. So I thought to myself, I need to get out of this. The only way I can get out of this is by listing my house up for sale, recouping some money from my house because I obviously can't afford to pay my mortgage, um, uh, and try to pay off my debts and build myself back up again, which is what I did. So I sold my house. I banked some money to put a down payment on another house in the future. But for the moment, my boyfriend at the time decided that we were going to rent for a little bit. Um, I had obviously came clean as because they needed to know why I wanted to sell my house. So I told them what was going on. And again, like it put a very big damper on my relationship, obviously, with him. Regardless of the fact he was very supportive, he is a wonderful man. Um, and I'm grateful for him being so understanding with everything that was going on. Um,
Can I just check in with you, Andrea, because you're sharing so much, and I'm so grateful for all that you're sharing with us. Going back to the conversation you were sharing regarding your dogs, you were dealing with, now I've got this gambling issue. I've got no money. I'm not able to work, because of the situation with COVID. And this is not unusual, right? When we're dealing with mental health, it's not like, okay, I've got this one little thing that I've got going on. It's like it's like it's coming from every angle. Like I'm being slam-basted from every angle in my life. Like, my work, my personal life, financial. How do you stay afloat, and what suggestions would you give to if a listener is listening to this right now that's in a similar situation? What would you give as some suggestions to try and stay afloat? Because I think this is a very common issue is people get, into they're taking certain medications because maybe they're dealing with a physical issue, right? They've got some kind of rehabilitation issue that they're dealing with, and now they're on these painkillers and they can't get off them. And whatever medications they're on, they're kind of in this cycle, but life is just being thrown at them in so many different ways. How do you stay afloat in that situation?
The meds, the meds
Mm,
numb you. They completely turn you into a zombie. You have zero emotions, you have zero feelings.
mm,
Um, you're literally a walking zombie. Um, so like to the point where my son was hitting milestones that I would normal people would be very happy and excited about. I was just like, whatever. Like,
so you're like
whatever.
turned off, like your
It's
affect is
off. It's off.
basically off.
It's off. You don't
And
feel
so
anything.
how are we? And the other thing I was wanting to ask you too is when we're going through some of these things, and I mean, now when we create something else has created a situation that I've got to deal with, I'm guessing like there's maybe some shame, some resentment, some
Oh yeah.
anger. So like how does that get dealt with? Like are we dealing with that? Like were you getting any support with any of those things, or was that like here's your prescription and that kind of just gets numbed away?
No, the doctor kept in communication with me. I had an appointment with her once a month. Uh,
Okay.
so if like something was going on and she needed to tweak the dose, uh, she would tweak the dose.
But is she
But
mostly managing your medication, or was she also doing like therapy where she was talking
she
with
would
you?
no, she yeah, she was doing
Okay.
therapy, but at the same time, like again, uh, I bought my first house when I was 21 years old. I always had money in the bank. I had all the nicest things. And here I am. I am 80 pounds overweight, broke, can't afford to buy myself underwear.
Mhm.
Um, it- there was really not much um, support in that aspect because I had to keep most of it bottled inside. I couldn't
Mm,
tell my family that I was still gambling. And the problem is too, like it's an addiction that's formed in the brain. It's not.
mhm,
It doesn't matter if I stop taking the medication. It's already formed there. You can't just stop it without getting help. And again, you're so hopped up on these drugs and you're numb. You don't realize you're not making rash, conscious decisions. Um, and like this is just like the tip. There's a lot more that happened in this last 4 years um, of me dealing with all of this nonsense. But you're literally a zombie. You have zero emotions. Not
mhm,
there's nothing anybody can say to you. Nothing you can do that's gonna make you feel any better or worse. Again, like I'm digging myself deeper every single day, but it's not registering that I'm doing this. Um, I'm
So
just
right
kind of
now,
going with the flow.
yeah, exactly, right? So, but now we're like five, are we five? Is it 5 years since this happened or longer?
Uh, uh, I would say about, yeah, 5.5 years.
Okay, so five and a half. We're so currently we're in January of 2025, and so how is your life changed now? Because I'm looking at a very different person from what you're sharing. So where are you now
Yeah.
with your life? Because this is a very like you went through some huge obstacles, which I think is a real true test to your commitment and your determination, and you're a warrior. And I think this is why your story is so valuable to share. So like where are you right now with your life? How's it going?
So just a brief little recap, just so you understand everything that has transpired over the last 5.5 years. That friend that lent me the money to put my dog down was the first person I paid back when I sold my house. And again, not being able to make rash, conscious decisions. He came to me and asked if I could help him because he was struggling with some finances himself. And he knew I had sold my house. He knew I had this gambling addiction. He knew that I was on this drug. Um, and asked to borrow some money. And me, I'm thinking, well, you helped me at the worst possible moment of my life. I had to put my dog down and I couldn't afford to do it. Of course, I'm going to help you. You helped me at my lowest point. Sure. So he would ask to borrow here, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. And I'm not, it's not registering that I'm here, 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 here again, because it's a compulsive spending addiction and compulsive behavior. Um, so it got up to me lending this person $50,000, which is half of, or just half of what I was saving to put on a down payment on another house. Um, but with promises that I was going to get it back. You're going to get it back at this time. You're going to get it back at this time. You're going to get it back. Every time I would ask for it back because I would put a bid on a house just in case I got accepted. I need to put a deposit down. There was always an excuse, and it got to the point where like the excuses again coming from a sane rational standpoint, you would look at him and be like, okay, seriously? Like, really? But me, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, you know, your money is frozen. You can't get it out of the bank. You can't do, oh, I completely understand. Like, it's totally, yeah, it makes total sense. No, that doesn't make sense. It makes zero sense. Anyways, um, it was a struggle to try and get my money back from this person. And it got to a point where I knew I wasn't going to get it back. The excuses were so just dumb, but I was eating them up like it was like candy. I knew at one point that I wasn't going to get this money back. So what happened? I fell into a deeper depression. I fell into a worse off state than I was, getting into all this because now I'm like, now I've lost everything for sure. I don't have a house to back me now. I don't have that savings to back me. I just lent this person money because they needed help, and now I, I can't even afford to put a down payment on another house. The doctor, I had called her and I told her I'm not in a good spot. I'm not in a good spot. So what did she do? She upped the medication. I went down that rabbit hole again. What did I do? I decided I was going to recoup my losses. If I wasn't going to get it back from him, I was going to win it back. So I started gambling to the point where I completely depleted everything. I had no house to fall back on, no savings. I put myself in like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt I had to basically file for bankruptcy, and all because of this person that I helped and lent money to. I was supposed to get the money back so I could buy my house. If the money was tied into the house, I wouldn't have went into another gambling depression. It was just an awful situation. So again, it led me down the rabbit hole, and I went into a further depression. And now, like, I can't tell my family, here I am again doing this. Like at this point, I'm like, I'm done. There's nothing for me. Like, why am I even existing? I can't afford to put food on the table. I can't afford to take care of my son. Mentally, I'm completely gone. I was addicted to the benzos, the benzodiazepines. They're the worst drugs to be on. You're only supposed to be on them for like a short period of time, like 4 weeks. I was on them for 4 years. So my body is literally addicted to it. I cannot stop taking these drugs. The moment I missed a dose for 10 minutes, I ended up in the hospital with debilitating withdrawals. I thought I was going to die. Um, Everything just came crashing down. It was not, I was not in a good place. I was not mentally in a good place. I didn't want to live anymore. I had nothing going for me. Um, at one point, I decided that I was just going to cease to exist. Um, because I was just a disappointment to everybody. I was a disappointment to myself. I was a disappointment to my family. I was a disappointment to my son's father. I was a disappointment to my son. There was no reason for me to keep going. So one night I decided I wanted to end it.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. That's hard to hear that you were in that such a deep place. And yet I know that your story is not this is not a rare situation. I think that this is where people get into such a deep, dark place that, yeah, like you absolutely can't see any light. Like there is absolutely no hope. And I
there
think
was
once we lose hope, and I think you raised some really important points here, is that you're so detached from feeling any emotions, the numbness is overpowering, that you're just so detached from your mind, your body, your soul, that you're just existing. And this is where people get just like taken down a very dark rabbit hole. And I know it's so heartbreaking to hear that you had to go through all this, I mean, to look and see you, it's like you've come through the other side. But to go and have to go through this journey is just like, it just saddens my heart to no end. And it just speaks to the fact that this is not the answers. I mean, a lot of the time the medications are needed in the shorter term, like in the first part of this process. But why is it we keep staying on these medications? Like, why is it that, and I
they give
know
you
there's
no
lots
hope
of
to come off of
answers to
them.
this. Pardon?
They give you no hope to come off of them.
Well,
They
and I
scare
mean,
you. The medical system scares you into, well, you can't come off of them because the withdrawals are lethal. um what's going to happen if you come off of them? What if you
yeah.
go
Well,
crazy again?
they're playing on you. Like they're playing on your emotional, your psychological, like it's a brain. They're fucking with your brain. I'll be quite honest. This whole situation around, you need to do these things, you need to take this, you need to, get yourself jabbed. I mean, I'm in my 50s. It's like, oh, you should have the shingles vaccine. Why am I injecting a vaccine that has the shingles virus into my body? But you see, this is the problem. We are, oh, okay, you're a doctor. You know what you're talking about. You have my best interest. No, people, wake the heck up. We need to start listening and paying attention to these situations. This is not in best interest. The fact is that you've shared with us the the journey of like, here, oh, I'm not doing well. Oh, it's not like have a session, let's work through some of these emotions. It's like, here, let me give you another script. This is the pharmaceutical reality, is we need to keep this fluctuating. This is how we make our money. It's the drugs. It's not about rehabilitating. It's not about mindfulness. It's about making sure people get well. It's about, no, we don't want people to get well. Then we're on these drugs who creates other issues. That's not what we want. And I'm like, when are we going to wake the F up? And that's where it's like people are so caught up in, well, this is what my doctors told me.
Trust
Have
the
you
science.
done the research?
Trust the science. Do your part.
Yeah, like listen, right? And it's, I mean, it's slowly coming out, but it's so sad because there's so many effects that people have gone through. People are homeless because they have been hooked on, these drugs, which have led to other situations. And yes, nobody shoved it down your throat. However, when you're in, like you shared, a dark place where you have no alternatives, you're thinking of taking your life, you're at the mercy of these people, systems, resources. It's like you are actually in, their hands. So this is like a really challenging, situation, and people are sinking. We're not actually helping the situation. I think we're making it a lot worse. What are your thoughts?
Um, well, I knew that I had like again at that point in time I was done. I There was nothing keeping me because it wasn't like I could go, run and tell my family, "Oh, look, this is what I did again." Um, I was just I was done. I was tapped out. I had nothing left to live for. I mean, so I thought. Sorry, I have a hair in my eye. And I remember going into the washroom and, taking all the medication. And when I was about to take that sip of water to complete the job, something directed me to look at my son, who was sleeping in my bed peacefully, and basically was like, spit the pills out. It's not your time. Um, and I remember dropping to my knees and I was bawling because it I was going to do it. If this voice or whatever um, didn't intervene, my son would have woke up to me on that bathroom floor. Um, and it was something that I was not okay with. At that point in time, I dropped to my knees and I surrendered myself to God because I knew that was Him. I knew that He was the one that pulled me out. Um, and He was basically telling me, "I'm not done with you." I mean, to be honest with you, that's how I feel. Like He's basically saying, "Yeah, yeah, you're not getting out that easily. We've got work to do now." So I spit the pills out, obviously. And from that, the very next day, I enrolled myself into rehab. I called rehab clinics. I had begged my psychiatrist to send me into rehab before I got into this point, but no avail. Um, I had contacted a rehab facility, and I basically, again, said, if you don't get me in there, I'm going to kill myself. And it's sad that this is how it works. That's the only way people will listen to you. Um, so within a month's time, I was in a rehab facility. Um, And the whole purpose of me going into the rehab facility was not for the rehabilitation part itself, because mine was not a substance addiction. It was a compulsive addiction. Um, I needed to get away from this. This was ruining my life, not him. Not him. Uh, but this was ruining my life. Um, so I went in there and I said, take my phone. I don't want it. I don't want it. For I think it was a 21 week program. I said, do not give me my phone. I don't want it. The only time that I want my phone is to make a call to my son, to his dad, and that is it. You take my phone. You don't give it to me. I don't want it, because I know that it takes 21 days to break a habit. So I made sure that there was no reason for me to have this in my possession, because no matter what I did, I would always go back into gambling. I found an app that I was able to block any websites that had anything to do with gambling. OLG, all these other online casinos. Um, I downloaded the app. I pay for it. Blocks. I can't get into it. I can't even check if I went and bought a lottery ticket. I couldn't even check to see if I won a lottery ticket from my phone. That's how heavy duty this app is. And I knew that once I got the gambling under control, I would be able to get the medication under control. So even though I was in there, they would still have to give me my medication, because again, it's debilitating. You can't come off of it. You have to taper it off. So every time I would go and take my med, I would say, I need you to cut down zero point 0.5. Just give me a quarter of it. I don't want the whole thing. Just give me a quarter of it. And I started to try and wean myself off by myself, because the doctors had tried, and I ended up in the hospital with severe withdrawals. Again, making you think that there's no possible way that you can come off these drugs. I completed the program. The entire time I was there, I was writing a book about everything that I was experiencing. Um, and every single night, I would pull up my Bible and I would start reading my Bible. Um, and that was like my comfort. It became comforting to me to read the Bible. And it started to make me grow more spiritually. I remember I got out of the program and I went home, and I was still on sleeping meds. I was still on the benzos. Again, benzos, you cannot, no, by no means am I telling anybody to do what I did, because again, they are lethal drugs. You cannot, they're one of the worst drugs to try and come off of, especially cold turkey. But this is why I am deeply indebted into Jesus, because he saved my life. And I'm like, every aspect of how my life has changed over the last year and a half, 2 years, I cannot say it was with my own strength. I wanted to end it. I did not want to live anymore. It was not my strength that did it. It was his strength that got me through it. I remember going home that night, and I got down on my knees and I prayed and I said, please, I know I'm going to go through withdrawals. If you can just tame them down so I can um, survive them, that I can deal with them and I can cope with them, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm going to try tonight to not take any of these meds. I don't want to take them. I'm going to just try it out for tonight. I know what happened to me last time. I missed my dose one night. I was in the hospital the next morning. So I was anticipating that was going to happen. But I said, if you can lessen the withdrawals for me, I would greatly appreciate it. Let me tell you, I woke up that morning and I never touched a drug, any of those drugs ever again. Drugs that they tell you cannot come off of. There's no way you can come off them. You need to taper them off. You need to wean yourself off. I stopped them cold turkey. Again, it's impossible. It's physically impossible for somebody to stop them cold turkey. Physically impossible. And I know that because I've done it. I've ended up in the hospital. This is why I'm saying, like, there's no way that I could have done this by myself. And the sad thing is during the whole entire process that I was going through all of this stuff, I lost my faith. I had no faith in God. I was like, how can God, make somebody, one person, go through all these series of traumatic events in a span of such a short period of time? There's no God, you know. Oh,
Mhm.
he showed me that there is, and literally from that point on, my life has completely changed. I no depression, no anxiety, no addictions. I don't drink. I don't party. I don't feel the need to party. I don't feel the need to do any of the stuff that I used to do. I have nothing. I've lost everything. I have absolutely nothing. And I have never been more at peace with my life.
Mhm.
It has made me realize the type of person that I was leading up to this. And I feel like I was humbled and I had to experience everything that I had experienced over the last 4 years in order to get me to the place that I'm at right now. I wanted people to envy me. I wanted people to look at me and want what I have. I had to have the best of everything. I had to have the nicest house. I had to have the fancy cars. I had to have the money in the bank, and I had to show off. Now I've got nothing. I have nothing, and I am so happy, and I'm so grateful because it makes you realize that doesn't bring happiness. None of that. None of that means anything. The drugs don't mean nothing. People in your life that are just toxic and sucking the life out of you. I prayed for them to disappear out of my life, remove them if they're not for me, gone within a day. Within a day. So I mean, I'm in such a different mind frame,
Mhm.
spiritually. My life belongs to him. It doesn't belong to myself anymore. Um, I spend every day with him. I read every single day. I read the Bible every single day, and it brings me, like it says in the Bible, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Um, Again, no depression, no anxiety. I don't care for anything. I don't fear anything. I'm not bothered by anything. Whatever happens, happens. It's not in my control anymore. And to be honest with you, that is what's gotten me through everything. Not, again, it's impossible because I was going to end my life. There was no way, there was nothing in me that wanted to live. How does that happen so miraculously?
Well, I mean this is just so amazing. And this is where, I have also really strengthened my faith and become spiritual. And I think for a long time I had really kind of pushed it aside and thought it was just a lot of hogwash. But
Mm-mm.
what I know, and I know what I've experienced, is that, God, the universe, the higher source is wanting the best for you. And sometimes we're just like closed off. We're like in our lane. We're like, nope, I got to do it myself. I got to figure it out myself. Like, that's all ego, right? Ego is like running the show. And we don't want to see that we don't have to figure it out ourselves, right? If we surrender it, it's like a magic happens that is unbelievable. But when we are fighting it and we're resisting and like, oh, I got to do it my way, I've got to figure it out, and you're not surrendering it, it's going to be a real torture. Like, you are fighting against what is really there for you. And
Well,
I
I
think
can
we
tell
live
you.
close to this to some degree, I think.
Believe me, like I can tell you, I was all into the whole, the universe and, astrology and the psychics and the tarot cards. I went through all that. And I realized for myself, that's all demonic. And the more you invite that shit into your life, the more your life starts to go down. The more you get rid of it and you surrender yourself to God, because To me, there's only God. There's no universe. The universe has no power. To me, that's all demonic. And not to say anything against you or anybody who believes that. That is just for me, right? That's how I feel about everything. And it's mostly because I know, because I feel him. He talks to me, and anything I ask, he's answered me. Like, I don't even have to question it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I carry him with me everywhere I go. He's with me
Mm-hmm.
everywhere I go. I have him everywhere. I don't listen to secular music anymore. You know, my life has completely changed, and it's in such a beautiful way that I can't even describe it. I can't even yeah, there's no words. There's absolutely no words.
Well, I
Again,
can
no
see.
disrespect to anybody who believes in those things. Everyone is entitled to believe whatever they want. But for me, this is what I believe, and this is what has ultimately has saved my life. Because again, I didn't want it anymore.
Well,
So
I mean, Andrea, this is like so, like I can feel the energy, and I think that the listeners are going to pick up on the energy. I think that everybody is going to go through their journey, and the beautiful thing about this is that you came through the other side, and you have such a beautiful, strong faith, and ultimately, whatever we believe in beyond ourselves is what's I, personally feel is what's important. um,
absolutely.
Listening to all the negative chatter and all the programming that society in our different systems, right, that we have, the more we can tune that down and go back into our heart, connect to inwardly, is where we're going to find that peace, that love, um, that groundedness, because there's just like so much going on out here that it can just take you down a rabbit hole that is not serving you. And
Hmm.
the more we can have these conversations about our mental health, about our emotional wellness, about our physical well being, is how we're going to rise above. And, I think it's amazing, and it's such a privilege and an honor to have these conversations with you. I'm so grateful that you are sharing your story, the ups and the downs, and that you are in such a different place, in such a great place. Like, I feel it. It
Thank
just
you.
fills my heart. I'm so happy for you, and I know that your family, your son, are reaping the benefits. You are an amazing person. You have so much to offer the world, and I think that when people are in those dark places, I've been there myself in different ways. It's hard to see that there's any other way to be,
Light. Yes.
right?
Yep.
And this, I hope, gives hope to people that when you're in these dark places, it's like, if you can even just find like a little glimmer, talk to somebody, don't keep pushing it down, because that's, where we're creating more illness, more disease, more suffering. We have to get it out. We have to talk about it. And then it's going to be, if you just open yourselves up, like, help me find that person who can guide me, that will come. It will open
Mhm.
up that portal to give you the support you need. That's the God, universe, whoever, whatever you believe in is there to support you. And I'm just so grateful that you have shared this. I know it's going to be so impactful for so many lives. And yeah, is there any information in terms of how people can find you? And I know you shared there was an app that you used that was quite helpful in terms of blocking. Is that something that's available for people that maybe you could share?
If they're struggling with a gambling addiction, yes,
Gambling.
the app is called Gamban. Um, and yeah, it literally it blocks any type of website that you try to enter that will allow you to to gamble, basically. It's such a strong app. I don't know much about applications or computers. Um, that like certain, I guess it registers through VPN, and if they see that you're going to spend money or whatever, it completely blocks all that out.
Okay. That's great. And I know you're an advocate. You are people able to reach out to you um, and
Um, I,
connect?
I'm on Instagram. Um, if they want to, reach out to me through Instagram. Um, I believe my Instagram handle is Andria Englezos 2024. Um, I'm on LinkedIn. I kind of deleted social media, to be honest with you, majority of social media, mostly because I find a lot of that as well is very toxic. Um, I mean, eliminating that as well has done quite a number for me.
Mhm.
So like again, yeah, you can put my email address on there if somebody wants to email me. Um, but for the most part, I only have the Instagram and the LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a good point you mentioned is that, yeah, social media can be another addiction. Addictions are not just,
Brainwashing.
yeah,
It's a lot of brainwashing, right?
and it's also it's a distraction, if our life is not going so well. It's like a dopamine hit, it kind of puts us in that cycle. It kind of either lifts us up or it makes us even feel worse because it's like, oh, wait a second, I don't have, like all these things that people are sharing or showing. And half the time, they're probably not even true, but people
No.
have this, AI or this, like, look at me. Meanwhile, I'm like suffering and I've got a whole bunch of, stuff going on in my life. So, but we can get caught up in this, right? We want to keep up
Yeah,
with what.
absolutely.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
this is great. Well, thank you again, for all your time, for sharing your story. And, people, I think the bottom line of this whole conversation is people really need to do their research. They need to really, keep advocating for themselves. I mean, it's amazing that you have family support, that they stood by you, they were there through the thick and thin, and that's not always the case. People don't always have that support. So I know it's keeping that conversation going, but we need to keep talking about our mental health. It's not
Do
going
your
away,
research. That
right?
is the most important thing here is do
Yeah,
your research. Don't trust the science, okay? Because the
yeah,
science is what's killing people, in my opinion. So yes,
yeah.
definitely do your research. That is probably the most important advice I can give to take away from all of this. Don't put
Yes,
poison in your body. Stop
yes,
poisoning your body. Your body can heal itself.
exactly. So again, thank you again, Andrea. This has been amazing. So many great takeaways. And yeah, we will look forward to getting this out and sharing it with the world. So thanks
Thank
again.
you. Thank you for having me again.
So, thank you again for listening to another episode of Tapping into Life. This is such an important conversation about our mental health and how we navigate the system and how do we find the support and find the voice to keep advocating for ourselves, especially in these difficult times. And Andrea was very, very good at doing that. Getting the support from her family, really speaking her truth, which is not easy to do. And often we are ashamed to share how we're feeling, even in these dark times. So I think that was one of my beautiful takeaways, is her courage to speak her truth, because a lot of the time we don't, and we suffer in silence. So if anything, that was one of my big takeaways. We need to speak. We need to speak up. We need to ask for help. And I will put her information in the show notes, as well as my own, so that if you are looking for some support, if you are looking for some ways to help support your nervous system, then please reach out for a free discovery call, because I would be more than happy to support you. And I've got a few beautiful offerings right now where I'm offering 10% off on my coaching packages. So if you reach out, then I can give you the details, but I will have the information in the show notes. So just click on the link and set up a call. Take care of yourself. It is always such a pleasure to have these conversations and to connect with you all. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so that you don't miss any of the episodes. And if this conversation really hit home, or you feel like there's somebody who could benefit from this conversation, then we really welcome you sharing this. The more we can get this out, the better, and more listeners that are going to take advantage and have this beautiful conversation of tapping into life. So take care of yourselves, keep tapping into life, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Bye for now.